Video lecture discussing, SQL. Just a little overview of SQL. Just to give you a little history of SQL. Where did SQL come from? How has it changed? And then, just a brief touch on what exactly is the SQL standard and how does it change. So SQL is the structured query language. SQL is pronounced SQL. I've heard some people pronounce it SQL, but it's really SQL. It is the standard language for relational database management systems. It is the means of communicating with the database and querying the data out. Queries such as, how many students are enrolled this semester, that kind of thing. But SQL does a lot more than gather up data. You use SQL to create relational databases and to secure relational database management systems, and the backup and the recovery and all of that is done using SQL or a GUI tool, which in the background converts everything to SQL and then sends those commands to the database management system. So relational database management system is a database management system that manages data, right? All of the tables should be related, as in the relations that we set up when we were setting up the logical model. And now we're dealing with the physical model. So the relational database management system manages the data that's being entered. A little history of SQL. EFCOD, here it's ECOD, but it's EFCOD. In 1970, developed the concept for relational database management systems. His paper is available in the Blackboard site. You can read it at your leisure if you feel like reading that. It gets a little complicated, but sometimes it's worth the read. Between 1974 and 1979, we started setting up System R, which used SQL. Again, later it turned into SQL. And this was all IBM. You have to understand, back in the day, that computers were different than they are now. In the late 60s and early 70s, when EFCOD was developing his theories and his concepts, disk storage space, hard disk space, was very, very expensive, and processors were very, very weak. And slow, not nearly what they are today. You have more power probably in your laptop or your iPhone than a lot of these people were using back in the day. So although he set up the concepts, it took a while before the hardware actually caught up to allow his concepts to be put into place. So that gets us to 1979, where the equipment starts catching up with the concept of relational database management systems. So Oracle first markets a relational database management system with SQL. 1986, ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, sets up a standard, which we'll talk about in just a second. So they set up a standard for what SQL is. Then in 1989, 1992, 1999, and 2003, there were major American National Standards Institute standard updates to SQL. Currently, SQL is supported by most of the major database vendors that are out there. As a matter of fact, I don't think there are any that don't support SQL in some way, shape, or form. So why was there a standard set up? Basically, the reason for it is that we needed some kind of a structure. We couldn't have the different vendors creating different languages to talk to different database management systems. Would make it very, very difficult to teach SQL, to teach students how to talk to database management systems. You would have to teach all of the different students. If you moved from job to job, you would probably be pigeonholed into one database management system or another. So it set up syntax and semantics for data definition and the way you manipulate data. define data structures and the basics of the operations. It enabled portability, right? So once I defined my databases, say in Oracle, and then I wanted to go to DB2, made it very, very easy to port. So we want database vendors competing on different capabilities rather than the basic structure. It specifies minimal and complete standards, right? So there's level 1, there's level 2 standards. It also allows for later growth. Obviously, we had different standards and major updates, 5 or 6 of them in the past 20 years. And again, so what are the benefits? The benefits, again, the reduced training costs, productivity. People don't have to relearn things when they go from one database management system to another. Portability, application longevity. Right, so if you create an application, you really don't have to worry about that application being broken by a standard being changed. It's reduced dependence on a single vendor. So now I can go from DB2 to SQL Server to Oracle to MySQL with relative ease. And there is and now because of that setup, I can have DB2 and Oracle and SQL Server all running on my network, and I can let them all talk to each other. So very important that we have a standard so that we can all use SQL much more easily. So again, that's just an overview, history, and a little explanation of the standard. That's the end of that.